if you look at what GPT is doing with helping you to code, up until the scale of where you're building complete apps and all the communication and soft skills that are involved there, then I think we can be skeptical if AI is going to even approach that, because it's all human.
Hello and welcome to the Pybites podcast, where we talk about Python, career, and mindset. We're your hosts. I'm Julian Sequeira.
And I am Bob Beldebos. If you're looking to improve your Python, your career, and learn the mindset for success, this is the podcast for you. Let's get started.
Welcome back to the Pybites podcast. This is Julian. I'm here with Bob. How's it going, man?
Hey man, welcome back. Who are you?
Who are you? It's been 4 weeks. We say this every time. The past few months, we've had one episode together. We're like, oh, we got to do this more often. And then
Kickoff 2024. And then we disappeared.
There's just guest after guest. And then it's been, lo and behold, it's been a month. We're like, we haven't spoken to each other in a month.
Yeah.
So what's been happening, man? Do you want to share a win or two, or what's up?
Win is that we're together on the podcast, I guess. No.
Perfect.
The Circle community is going wild. So we moved from Slack to Circle, which was a big risk, an endeavor.
A lot of work.
But all the Kajabi stuff is in there. It's all integrated. It's a beautiful tool. And it started slowly, and now more people are joining. Some old hats coming back from Slack, and yeah, that's. People are posting more, and what I really like is that they engage a lot. So there's a lot of comments going on and threads on those posts. So yeah, people are. Yeah, somebody said he was only lurking, but he was already getting a lot of value out of it. So
yeah. See, there you go. Even the lurkers get value.
Yeah,
I love it.
So it's a good place. You should join.
Yeah, I think what I like is that it's more like a message board. And it takes a bit of getting used to. I got to admit, when you're using Slack and those really instant messaging type clients, you almost get trained to think that a community has to be instant response, right? But then I would like to compare it from a usage standpoint to like the old message boards of back in the day, right? Or even
forums, right?
So, yeah, forums. And even if you think about Reddit, right? Reddit doesn't have, direct message as its main source of connection between people. They just post and they'll get a notification when there's another post or a reply, and that's just how it works here. So I like it. It gives a lot of structure and allows people to really post something meaningful rather than just a one-liner. So it's good.
Yeah, the posts are definitely high quality, but yeah, it's not constantly in your face like Slack. On the flip side, though, you might lose notifications, and it's a bit more hidden. But that's also a good thing. So it's not too interrupted. The only downside is that they don't have a desktop app yet.
Yeah.
So you have to use it in the browser. But
But I'm on them. So for everyone listening, I'm in charge of letting the Circle support team know what our grievances are every month.
That's the thing, right? They're very responsive, and they work with
they
us,
are
and
actually.
they are implementing things. So that's nice.
Yeah, to their credit, they're very, very helpful. Anyway, we didn't mean for this to be a Circle plug
Hey,
or
it's
anything.
important. It's the Pybites community. That's a core piece,
And it is just back to the point. It's very engaging these days. Like I could get stuck in there for an hour trying to read everything and respond to everything, So testament to everyone who's in there posting and talking. I love it.
Shout out and thanks as well for people posting all that good stuff there. Yeah.
Yep. Cool.
What about you?
What are we talking about?
Wins.
Oh, wins. What about me? Yes, I'm a bit rusty. Look, there's heaps of wins because it's been a month. But I think since we last recorded, we at home, this is going to be personal, by the way. It's always personal with me. We've renovated our laundry in our house, so that's nice and to where we wanted it, usable functional, which is great. And at the moment, like right now, outside this very window that I'm standing next to, our front yard is being landscaped. So there's a probably 2 meters away from me, there's a bobcat type machine sitting there waiting to
Named after
continue
me.
digging up.
Yeah.
Yeah, bobcat to dig up the front yard. So it's good. It's going to be a nice turfed front lawn with grass, which will make it usable for us and the kids. So there's my win. Just those are things we wanted to do for 2 years and had to save up for and stuff. And it's been nice to get them kicked off, I think. But
That's
there's
awesome.
so many cool things there, man, with Pybites and the programs that are coming and the veteran support that I'm working on. And if anyone out there is keen to learn more about that, I won't talk about it now. We'll do that in another podcast episode. Um, but if you're keen to support, learn more about it, how I'm supporting, how Pybites, I should say, supporting military veterans, it'll then, send me, join the community, send me a DM on that or on LinkedIn. I'd love to hear from you. But yeah, that's what's happening. And we've both been interviewed on a few different podcasts over the past month, I think.
Yeah, you were on Python People with Brian
Yeah, with
Ocken.
Brian
I
Ocken.
was
I've
on
been
V
interviewed
Brownback
on,
with Chris Williams.
yeah. Yeah, what do you
And
have coming
Shala.
up? Do
Can
you
I
have Real
already say
Python?
that?
Was it Real
Yeah,
Python?
I'm going to get on Real Python. Yeah. It's
Yeah,
not
yeah,
yet
yeah.
recorded, but I will. Yeah.
Nah, it's not recorded yet.
Yeah.
Um, one of my friends has just kicked off a podcast, and I'm in one of his first episodes, and that'll be launching, I think, this week now or next week or something like that. I don't
They
know.
just said he was kicked off a podcast. Like, what did he say?
Oh no, no, he's
He
kicking
kicked it.
off his podcast. He's starting it.
People sometimes have
Um,
trouble understanding Julian. It's the
yeah,
Australian thing. He's like, give it a quiz. I learned the other day.
yeah, and then you wrote that in the email this week.
Yeah.
So there you
Thanks.
go. Learning some proper. You're learning the Queen's English.
Yeah.
Is
Took me
that?
a while to figure this guy out. But yeah, no. Sorry, he kicked off a podcast and you were on there, right? Mindset?
Yeah, I was on there. So I don't know what number. Hopefully, I'm guest number one, but we'll see. We'll see.
Hmm.
So very exciting. All that
Nice.
stuff's happening. Just too many things. We should do like an update episode, just a random episode talking about all the things we're working on. I think would be
Hmm.
good.
Oh,
Doesn't have to be a formal thing. But anyway, so today we are talking, except, well, we're not just talking about ourselves. We're actually talking about AI. And Bob, why is this a thing that we're talking about today?
well, it's
It's
everywhere, right? No, like we keep using it, we keep thinking about it, we keep reading about it. But we're also hearing increasingly from people that they're kind of nervous about it, and is AI going to replace us? How is this going to look for developers? Should I even become a developer? And that's when we said, whoa, okay, let's talk about this, right? I think
Hmm.
that was kind of the rationale.
Yeah, 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 exactly. The amount of people we talk to, and you can't help but mention it, right? I mean, you might even mention in conversation that you uh, use ChatGPT for something, right? And everyone suddenly the conversation just turns to that, like, oh, what are your thoughts on that, and all those things. So before we jump into the whole what people are saying, Bob, my
Hmm,
question to you, I'm putting you on the spot because again, everyone, we didn't prepare for this episode. This is
never.
just
Yeah.
Bob, just random banter. So let's say you and I were sitting in a pub having a coffee or a beer, depending whatever your taste is on the day.
That will
Um,
influence the answer, but yeah.
and I was to ask you, what are your thoughts on Chat GPT right now when it comes to coding? And also, well, actually, just start with that. Start with that. What's your thoughts on Chat GPT now in the coding seat?
I think it's still awesome,
Hmm.
but use it, what's the word? Just judiciously.
Judiciously.
Yeah.
Very,
Is that
very
right?
good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, smash me, man.
Insidious. Yeah. So no, I still use it quite a lot, but there are things it's not doing in an optimal way. There is a chance of hallucinations, etc. So, and but you know, people have reflected a lot on the podcast here as well, is that it's not writing production ready code, right? So you will have to tweak it. and be, yeah, that was another thing you discussed with somebody. Also, don't just pick up on the first iteration, right? You definitely
Mm.
want to iterate with it. So I
Yeah.
think it's a very useful tool. But I keep saying the effectiveness of it depends on the prompting as well as you being able to interpret the results and piece it together. And that whole piecing it together, making it work and making it quality, that's still where developer experience and us being human comes in. And yeah, does not make it magically, you know,
Yeah.
cranking out end-to-end quality apps, right? So it's a
So,
tool, it's helpful, but I think there's still a lot of experience coming to the table.
so the question then that I hear or see people saying and mentioning is it's not there yet.
Hmm.
So do you think, and you know, it's not like I'm saying that you keep on top of every AI trend and every bit of news, but I'm just saying like it's always improving. So do you think it'll get to a point where it just is accurate and you can trust it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't have the answer because
Mm,
there's an exponential component to this. I mean, like 1 or 2 years ago, or even a year ago, right? We wouldn't predict that we would be using these tools like this, right?
hmm
And now we are, and it's becoming normal, right? And that's like, I mean, the technologies have been. I think OpenAI started in 2015, so it has been working on that stuff for 8 years, right? nine
Yeah.
years. But as consumers, we had it like from one day to the other, right? And that has been
Mm,
only like a year ago. So we couldn't predict that, right? So what's the next thing? We probably cannot predict that. We
hmm
do know that these models are getting better, and that also depends on the hardware and the data, which we have never had more than before, right?
Yep.
So it's hard to predict. And maybe I turn the question to you because you spoke with somebody that is working on these models and how they actually work on the hood, because that's where I'm far. Like I drive the car, right? I've hardly peeked under the in the
Under the
engine,
hood.
right? So I don't know, right? I'm not. I know how to use them quite efficiently, but I
Mm,
don't know how they work. And you had a peek on the inside, and you're actually blown away how that prediction stuff works, right? And so
yeah.
maybe I should ask you, what would you think, how if this would exponentially develop, and what then would
I
happen, you know?
Yeah, it's true. And thanks there for that reminder. Yeah, I did chat with someone working on it. And we might get actually I'd love when he's ready to get him on the podcast to
Mm,
really talk about this stuff. Um, and obviously we're not mentioning his name out of privacy
mm.
protection for him, but um and so I'm probably gonna butcher this from a technical standpoint, but just from the what we were discussing the other day, which just blew my mind is the level of prediction involved with this. So yes, GPT, and when you write into Chat GPT and you type your question, you type all that sort of stuff, right? The answers that it's giving you, the responses, yes, they're based on data, but it's based on a prediction, the most likely, what is the most likely word that should follow the preceding word. So, and it's doing these calculations at incredible speeds, right? Using incredible amounts of processing power and technology. But the reality is it's still based on the data set that we're feeding it. And so I don't know, and maybe this is a naive way of looking at it, but personally I kind of feel like, yeah, it's always going to be a step behind in a way until we get it to the point where it's literally being fed with live data that has happened at this moment. I mean, if you look at ChatGPT, right, the current models, how what date are they up to,
Yeah, I
Bob?
think it was 2022 for a while. Now it's
Yeah,
2023. But I mean,
yeah.
obviously, it's always some months behind, at least, right?
Mm. And there's data it just or data that it just may never have, right? I don't know if
Mm.
it's only being fed stuff that's online. What about things that aren't put online? And there will be gaps here and there. I'm sure there are situations that I'm not capable of even anticipating or thinking of, obviously. So I don't know. I think there's always going to be there's some healthy skepticism to keep there that it won't be the be all end all of everything, and we still need to be involved to some extent. But yeah, just from that technical conversation I had, like I was saying, the prediction involved there that they still kind of don't really understand how it chooses every time because you'll get if they I'm guessing in with my simple understanding, if they knew exactly how it worked and how it was capable of predicting every single time, you'd be able to get the same answer every single time, right?
Which you
But then
don't, right?
something which you don't. And the fact that I say fact loosely here, but when you have your entire chat GPT conversation going, every time you hit return or enter and submit more information, it's taking everything, it's just feeding everything that was already returned before back into the model to predict what's next.
Mm,
So it's that's why you kind of hit these rate limits because it's not just feeding the latest thing and it's not keeping a memory of everything preceding. It's taking all that and putting it in. So it's kind of manual in that respect,
mm,
right? And so I don't know where I'm going with this. I think the point is that I think the technology is still quite young from hearing this, and it fills me with a bit of reality that yeah, these things are super intelligent and spit out super cool things, especially when it comes to code.
mm.
But that because it's predicting based off the previous word and the word before that and the word before that, the second it accidentally makes something up or puts in the incorrect fact or word or predicts the wrong thing,
Cascades, right?
it cascades, right? Yeah, it just
Yeah,
snowballs into more and more garbage.
yeah,
Right, garbage in, garbage out. So, yeah, and for those of you listening who know more about this than me, please, by all means, write an email. Come join us on the podcast for a chat, YouTube
yeah.
live, whatever. I don't care. But I love learning about these things, and I think it's interesting. Um, but from a coding perspective, Bob, then
Mm,
when people are talking about their jobs being at risk, because
mm,
to dive into what we're hearing, everyone, we're hearing a lot of people say, "Yeah, I'm kind of worried." And I
mm,
think a lot of people have that we've spoken to directly have a bit of that healthy reality of saying, look, it's not going to take over my job, but it's certainly going to take parts away from me.
mm.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, most people actually thought that, right? Like I did a quick poll on X or Twitter,
Mm,
and there are already only like 81 votes, so not sure how representative it is, but it's it's more than 10 votes.
mhm,
And 9% said it will replace it. So that's a far minority, right? Like 91 said that it would be a helper, basically, which is we're seeing, right? Like you can definitely be more productive. It's basically a search on steroids, right? Like you can be very target in getting information, have it and explain your things, write little snippets up until
mm,
complete test suites and all that. So with the previous reservation I'd made that you have to always understand the code and possibly tweak it to make it better. Hence, one of the coaches said, like, yeah, you're not going to be replaced by AI, by an engineer that uses AI tools, right? Which to a certain extent I think is true because there's an efficiency gain very tangibly already seen, right?
mhm.
You will see it, and I can talk from experience there. But when it comes to like the core question of should I even get into this field, all is lost, the,
Yeah.
the kind of fear stuff. Um, Maybe the more junior roles would have rightfully so, right? Because if it really comes down to more automatable work, then yes, then that's there. I think that's at risk. But if you then look at more like intermediate to advanced developer, senior developer, staff, that kind of roles, as I spoke on the podcast with Chris Williams as well, right? Like a cloud therapist he is. Uh, the higher you go up, the more soft skills, and this is on your favorite. The more soft skills are needed, right? And I think to a certain extent, any developer needs a good chunk of soft skills because you're talking about talking with customers, getting requirements, iterating, communication. We all know, like, well, let's actually talk about it here. Like, if
Mm,
you if you look at what GPT is doing with helping you to code, up until the scale of very building complete apps and all the communication and soft skills that are involved there, then I think we can be skeptical if AI is going to even approach that, because it's all human, right? It's all
Mm.
yeah. So and maybe that's where we don't cannot see this yet, and it will be there someday. But right now, I don't see that, right? And it's way
Yeah.
too human for to even entertain that, I think.
Mm. Yeah, I
So
agree.
I think you agree with that, right? Because I think we
Mm.
Pybites humanizes software development was a slogan.
Oh.
Um, but you from the mindset side, um, yeah, do you agree with that? And but why do you think then people have that fear? Because I think most people that express that fear also know that increasing soft skill level is also true, right? So
Mm.
can you shed a mindset light on that?
I think there's a couple of things. I think one, it's just a natural fear of new things, right? You think about, and to get a bit historical, you think about, the Industrial Revolution and all of that, the jobs that were automated by machines, right? But
Mm,
then it also creates new jobs. And this is also new, that we don't know what's going to come from it. We don't know what's going to be created as a result, you know? It's kind of exciting. New things, new jobs and technologies, and uh, I guess languages for programming, or users for Python, machine learning, all those sorts of things. Um, New things will come up, and demand for these kinds of engineers and developers, I think, will skyrocket. They already are, you know.
mm,
So if anything, it's just, I feel like it's another plateau for technology of going, yeah, look, we've got something new. Um, the mindset of holding on to things the way they are, where it's comfortable, is strong. And so the idea of change is difficult for people, and there's fear in that.
mm.
Uh, that said, I think timing is also a big deal. Came out, ChatGPT in earnest 2023, right?
Mm.
It was 2023, you reckon?
Or and 2022.
2022, whatever. That coincides with the giant downturn in the tech sector, right?
Yeah.
The Amazon, Google, Microsoft, all their first wave of layoffs started happening, what, November 2022, I think.
Which was the post-COVID
Yeah. And that was
consequence,
all
right?
COVID based. It's
Yeah.
all bloat due to COVID. It
It's
has
all coming
nothing to do
together.
with
Yeah.
AI. But the fact that I think people can't, I'm not putting words in people's mouths, but there is a feeling that, hey, the tech sector's bombing. All of these jobs are being, these people are losing their jobs. They're
And
becoming
there's
obsolete,
AI to
whatever.
finish it off.
And there's AI right in the mix of it, coming out at
Yeah.
the exact same
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
So I think there is
Interesting.
a
Yeah. Yeah.
subconscious connection there as well. But
It's almost like, yeah,
um,
they invigorate each other, right?
hmm,
Hmm.
yeah. Meanwhile, I think the mindset that needs to go along with this is a mindset of growth.
Hmm.
This is just a new
Charles
technology
Dweck.
to, yeah, exactly. This is just a new technology to help you grow and help you do things, help you perform, and learn quicker. For me, what I absolutely love and adore about this technology is, from a technical perspective, I just get answers for the stuff that I need much quicker. It does the data sorting for me. And
Hmm.
I don't think that's something anyone should be afraid of, you know? So for example, doing sysadmin type stuff with my server at home that I built over Christmas. Um, there are things I didn't know with Docker and hypervisor layer stuff, and I was getting bugs. I mean, why isn't this working? Why is it? Instead of having to search through 500 different random blog articles, the Bing Copilot thing that's built into Windows 11 now, um, did it for me and had an answer for me straight away. And I was able to resolve the issues with that I was seeing in, let's call it, an hour, as opposed to an entire weekend of my time, right?
Yep.
And so I think that's the kind of scenario we should all be embracing with this technology. Instead of being afraid, use it. Don't be afraid to use it. Learn to use it to speed up your work, speed up the things that you do. And I said this in the podcast with my friend. And this might be very, very optimistic and too thinking big that may result in society crumbling. But
I'm the
the
pessimist, so good balance.
I think the capitalist way of looking at this is maybe it's not even capitalism, but whatever. If you can do your work more efficiently because GPT shortcuts stuff for you and speeds up the process, right? This is all just ChatGPT. Forget the countless other AI products out there, right? But if it can speed up the process of your job and the things that you do, then you can squeeze more into your workday and do even more, right?
Mm.
I'm thinking,
Would employers think like that?
of course, I reckon employers would think like that in a heartbeat if
Yeah.
they weren't too worried with data security going into these public apps, right? But my feel good thought here is that wouldn't it be nice if if we could all speed up our roles with AI, that humanity just does a 3 day work week or only works 3 hours a day? Like imagine that. So this is getting very this is
Like
you
you
and
have
me at the pub.
been reading. I've been reading
This
Thomas More a bit too much. Yeah. Didn't he write
this is
Utopia?
this is what this these everyone these are the conversations Bob and I have when we hang out. But the like wouldn't it be amazing if because we work to earn money and to get food and put shelter over our heads and all that sort of stuff, right? That's why people work. And
Well, and get to get meaning as well, and to give
oh, and to
back.
get meaning, of
Yeah.
course, to give back and find, but you can find meaning in stuff that you don't need to be paid for. So
True.
imagine if you could get the same amount of work done in 2 or 3 hours a day, companies pay you the same amount because you're providing the same value. And you just use the rest of the time to do things better, to be with your family, your friends, go and help out, go and volunteer, go and clean up the planet, do, clean up Australia Day, those sorts of things. Oh man,
If it all was that nice, but then the
too
pessimist view would
romantic.
be, yeah. But then of course they ditch half of the staff and they have you work double. You know.
They have your work. Yeah, take half the week off, but we're only going to pay you half.
Yeah. So yeah, it's
Mm,
interesting. But yeah, I think the takeaway is that best to adopt a growth mindset. I
mm.
think Dweck is one of the most quoted authors,
Oh yeah.
persons on the show. But read that book, Mindset, if you haven't. It's a really good explanation going from the fixed to the growth mindset, because you might think that you have a growth mindset. And by the way, we have an episode on this as well with
Mm,
Alejandro, I think half a year ago. And
yep.
you might think you have a growth mindset, but then you discover you still have a fixed mindset with certain things. So it's yeah, it's interesting. But yeah, adopt those tools. It's not only to write code. If you're skeptical about that it will introduce bugs, you don't have to use it to write code per se. You can also just have it, what we often do is we use it for partial things, right? Like a
Yep.
snippet, or oh, what was this? Or can you explain this? Or, and then, yeah, you do notice that you're still pretty much involved in it, but you go so
Mm,
much faster. And that's interesting.
yeah. Well, the thing that if I was to put my own kind of worry or fear on it is at the end of the day, companies still own these tools.
Hmm.
So you're still feeding them with data. And
Yeah.
sure if you comb through those privacy policies and stuff, they're saying, yeah, don't put private information in here because whatever you type in here, we capture, right? And they probably trawl it, they probably harvest it and dig in, data mine it for whatever marketing and advertising data that they need to sell off, right? I'm not saying every company is going to be like that, but hey, at the end of the day, that data stuff, the data you're feeding into it is valuable to other people. So there is that
And
healthy
that's a
dose
good
of,
point, right? That's a
yeah,
limitation. We're pretty cautious what we put in.
mm,
And if you're working at a company, you might not feed any data into it, right? So you're
mm,
basically without tools. Or
yep,
they don't let you enable Copilot, for example, because no,
mm,
it might passively upload source code, right? And we
exactly.
don't want that, and you should definitely not do that. So yeah, but then still you can use that tool more as an educational tool, right? Like explain decorators to me or something like that, right?
Yep.
So that's a good point, that the limitation is that you're always going to be cautious what data you put in, and you will definitely not put in personal info, which might be needed if you really want to use it to its fullest extent. And also, we are using version 4, so not promoting it per se, we're not affiliated, but there's a stark difference, right, between 3.5
Mm.
and 4. So if we're saying it works because we use 4. And I think when we use 3.5, then yeah, we're getting barely the same results, right?
Yeah,
So, and maybe that's also the skeptics saying that it produces buggy code. Sometimes are referring to 3.5, the free version,
that's true.
where 4 is definitely way better. Yeah.
But hey, if
So just want to make
OpenAI wants
sure we,
to,
we clarify on the versions. Yeah.
well, if they want to sponsor the podcast so we can push version 4 on people, I'm happy to do. Anyway, look,
Vinny always
so
thinks like a businessman.
mate, someone's got to keep the lights on in this house. You got to keep the power going into this podcast and these microphones. So look, we could clearly talk about this for ages, but I think the summary here is, yeah, use the AI tools as tools. You know, healthy skepticism, caution around it all, obviously with privacy, but don't be afraid, and certainly remember that they can give you the edge. And whatever your fears and worries happen to be, if you're not learning it, someone else is. And
Yeah.
that's the person who might pip you to the post in a specific job that you might want because they're capable of using it, learning it,
Yeah.
and just learning things quicker as a result. So, whatever your
Yeah.
feelings
Because
are, it's not something you can ignore.
because you see still a lot of tutorial paralysis, right? People spending hours and hours on books and complete tutorials. But all that time, if you would spend it more focused, using ChatGPT for learning, you will pick up concepts faster because you're
Yeah.
going to be laser focused, right?
And even it's
And that's
it's
your
like it,
edge, right?
but it can be like talking with someone, right? Because it will say something and you can say, hang on a minute, can you explain that to me like I was five? Or
Yeah.
you mentioned this, what is that? Whereas if you were reading a book or watching a course, you'd have to post that question in the course itself. Or if you're reading a book, you'd have to go to the appendix and try and find a relevant page that mentions that module or something, right? So
Yeah.
it's kind of cool to get that talking to and from it. It works like a mentor in that respect.
Yeah.
Did you say
I,
did you say coaching program?
I,
Sorry, keeping the lights
I
on.
like the other day I had to explain fractions, but I was to my son. So I said like, well, explain
Oh,
it like
yeah.
to a 10-year-old, right? And then
Hmm.
you can give that context.
Yeah,
All that said, though, nothing like human interaction. So
yeah,
that's join the
that's
community.
true.
Also, I'm going to make a post about this when this comes out, and then we'll link it below. So if you have any thoughts, you want to comment on this, then hop in there, and we'll have a link below to continue the conversation.
Hmm. Okay. Well, I think that's a nice way to end this one because we've been chatting for I don't even know how long. We've been recording, right? Yeah, it's recording. Phew. Just just checking. So let's wrap it up like we normally do. What are you reading?
I finished Demian, Herman Hesse, uh, one of my favorite authors, and reading
What is
design patterns. Dive into design patterns. I will link it below. Um,
what's the first book?
Demian,
Is that
Damian.
is that fiction?
It's fiction, Bildungs, like yeah, using forming kind of philosophical
Oh, okay.
novel. Yeah, yeah, and
Nice.
yeah, and the design patterns were Juanjo shout out. He recommended that. So as I said before,
Oh,
right, I'm
nice. Yeah.
not using a lot of tutorials, but I'm more into the concepts books like Fluent Python and Code Complete, and that's a good one for an overview of design patterns. So I'm only
Yeah,
10%
cool.
in, but it's explains stuff well.
Nice. Okay.
You
Yeah, nothing technical.
business?
No, I'm no, I'm kind of I'm reading actually I've probably got like 10 books I'm reading at once, right?
Yeah.
But the one that I'm currently sucked into is a book called Dr. Space Junk versus the Universe. And I got it on a whim. I just picked it up off the shelf and got it. And I actually started reading it. I think I mentioned it on the podcast or a podcast over the past month or so, but I actually started reading it like last week. And it's an incredibly interesting read. It's about an Australian scientist. I think scientist would be the safest way to just describe the author. I've forgotten her name. I apologize. Um, but the idea is when, she grew up as an archaeologist in Australia, which back in the day was considered like, what are you doing? Because, and I say this in quotes for everyone listening, all we had was Indigenous Australian artifacts to study. And back then, everyone was like, "Nah, all the money's in Africa and Europe and all those places." And then the breakthroughs in the 70s and 80s over here in Australia led to it being more of a, "Oh wow, things are really old over there."
Mm,
So anyway, it's about that and her journey through that side of things, but then her sudden inspiration to get into astrophysics and space. And now, if you think about it, when you talk about space, you're looking to the future. But then when you talk about archaeology, you tend to be looking to the past. And so
mm,
it's this cool, to use a big word, juxtaposition, this whole comparison and of the two and how they work together and how our past influences that future and how it being in space, there actually is a past in space. Like you think about the moon landing, that's from what, the 60s, I think. And
69, yeah.
yeah, and so that's so long ago now. But that's our past, but it's in space, which is our future. And it's just, anyway, it's a really cool book. I'm really
Interesting.
enjoying it.
Yeah.
Australian.
How did you find it?
I walked into a bookstore, saw a funny name, and just pulled it off the shelf. That was it.
Random effect. Yeah.
Random. Loved it.
Love it.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, oh, and the last thing I want to mention, everyone,
Go to
is that
Amazon. Go to your local bookstore.
you go to your local bookstore, go to brick and mortar. Don't buy it
Yeah.
online.
I found a
Um,
secondhand shop here in my town, and
oh yeah.
the owner had a had similar taste with the classics and stuff. So it's cool. Look, yeah,
Is everything in that shop Spanish?
I guess so. Yeah, it's local
Ah,
stuff. Yeah,
because when Bob and I were in Cordoba, did I say that right? Cordoba?
yeah,
Cordoba. We were
yeah.
in
That's fine.
Cordoba,
Yeah, yeah. Soft R.
softer,
Yeah,
Cordoba.
that's
That's my
that's uh,
American accent. Where we,
that's gringo.
where, where we were there, we found this incredible bookstore and it was old, it was dusty, things were just stacked on top of each other. It looked like the place you just blow into the air and half of the books would fall apart. I would have gladly bought half the store if everything wasn't in Spanish.
You're
So
going
that was a
to
shame.
pay for an extra suitcase.
Yeah, exactly.
The only reason
Um,
we went out of that shop because we were hungry. Otherwise, we would have, stayed there
and
for 3 hours.
yeah, it was getting late. It was like 10 p.m. I think everyone was closing for
Yeah,
food. So,
yeah, yeah.
um, so the one thing I did want to mention, aside from the books, is Bob introduced me, everyone, to an Italian show called Gomorrah. And I watched one episode and I thought, yeah, I can wait. And then I watched the second episode and that's it. I've just been hooked. Whenever we're done working Pybites in the evenings, I've been getting to that, and it's just been so much fun to watch. So horrifying. It's
Fun,
about if you haven't.
fun or horrifying?
Oh, it's
can
entertaining. It's interesting.
can
It's
go
just
together apparently.
it's wild. But if
That's
you got to
quite
watch this
brutal.
show, yeah, it's brutal. It's about the Italian mob in
Yeah,
Napoli, in
it might not
Naples.
be for everyone.
It's not for everyone. It's very
Yeah,
violent, but it's more confronting more than violent, I would say,
yeah,
and the reality of it all. So
yeah.
it's
There's a storyline to it. I think the show
yeah,
has a message like
yeah,
don't end up there, right?
yeah. So it's a
It's
it's a it's a good show, but just wanted to call that out because I've been watching that, and now Bob, I finished season one. We can watch season two together.
yeah.
So there we go.
Oh, you're hooked.
I'm hooked. I'm hooked.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Well, that's it. I think we're
All right.
done.
I think we're done. It's a good show.
Nice, man. It's a good
Uh,
episode if I don't
let's
say do say so myself.
let's uh let's not make it another month.
Yeah, let's. I do want to record one next week because, or even you could even do it on Thursday night, but just line them up. But I do
One
want
more
to talk
thing.
about
One
an
more thing.
episode. One more thing.
Like the Apple
Yeah.
conferences. One more thing. Um, Pycon.
Oh yeah, we're
We are
going to PyCon.
going. Aren't we?
Pycon US. Yes, we got to make it happen. We've only got
Yeah.
3 months until it starts, so we need to buy tickets and get over there. But we're going to go
Cannot
to
submit
Pycon
talks anymore,
US.
but
Mm,
we'll be there. We want to be there. It's going to be a goal of us,
yep,
and meet as many people, connect to open spaces,
yep.
and have a lot of fun.
If we have anyone in the Python Pybites community coming, we'll totally do some sort of a go to the pub or get an open space somewhere that we, depending on the numbers, somewhere that we can get everyone together and just say, hey, that'd be nice.
So reach out on the community, and yeah, we'll do another post, dedicated post, who's going, and then
Yeah,
we get already people connected before.
love it.
Yeah, ideally both of us, at least one, but I think we definitely going to make it happen to go both.
Yeah, we'll
Needs
do
to
it.
happen.
We'll
It's been
work
a
for
while
that.
that we've been there.
Yeah, it's been 5
5
years
years,
almost.
man.
Yeah, 2019.
It's almost embarrassing.
Yeah, time flies though.
Doesn't
Still
sit
look at
well
the,
with us. Yeah.
yeah, it doesn't. I still see the pictures though and think,
Yeah.
geez, that was like yesterday. So,
Also young back then. Yeah.
yeah.
All
I
right.
love it.
Cool.
All right, let's
All right,
go.
man.
Thanks for
Take it
listening,
easy.
everyone.
All
You
right.
too.
Yeah. Thanks for tuning in. Forgot it was a podcast. I'm just
Yeah, it's
chatting.
not just a Zoom meeting.
Yeah. And we'll be back next week. Yeah.
Next week. Cheers. Bye.
Ciao. We hope you enjoyed this episode. To hear more from us, go to pybites/friends. That is pybit.es/friends, and receive a free gift just for being a friend of the show.
And to join our thriving Slack community of Python programmers, go to pybites/community. That's pybit.es/community. We hope to see you there and catch you in the next episode.